Excellent. Hi, everybody. My name is Memo. Nice to meet everybody. Let me just share my screen with everybody. Okay, perfect. And just to kick off, I wanted to start with a quote from one of the biggest people, in my opinion, at least within marketing, which was John Wanamaker. Quite a few years back now, he made a very famous quote that basically said, half the money that he was spending on advertising was wasted. The trouble was he didn't know which half it was. Now, as somebody who works in marketing, that's a bit shocking at the moment. With digital marketing, it's all about measuring. And essentially, what you can measure, you can then improve. And never has it been more important than now with everything that's going on with COVID. People are engaging a lot more with digital. They have to, everybody's stuck at home. So being able to measure what success might mean, what success might mean has changed for a lot of businesses, but it still needs to be something that's measured, basically. So we've come a long way since the days of kind of the Mad Men. So the Mad Men was the John Drapers of the world, where they'd be sitting there going, you know what, I'm going to write this amazing bit of copy or this great advert that's going to make all these people buy. But now, actually, with a lot of the people within digital, when you're looking more on the data side of things, there's this kind of balance between the Mad Men and the Math Men. Where I work, which is a large digital agency, you still get a lot of the creative types, which would probably fall into the Mad Men situation, but myself and my team, we tend to be more on the looking at the data side of things, making sure that what we're doing actually has an effect for our clients and for their businesses. Now, this is interesting. This is recent stats, generally about the majority of industries out there. When people were surveyed, these are the top challenges that came up for marketing. Now, the first three on there are quite shocking, in my opinion. So generating traffic and leads, which was a big challenge, which essentially is what marketing is there to do. Marketing departments should be able to do this. This should not be a challenge. Proving that there's ROI from marketing activities. Again, this is crucial because you need to know that where you're spending your budget is actually working for you. And then securing enough of that budget as well. But again, if you get the first two of those correct, securing the budget shouldn't be much of a problem. Now, the interesting thing with this is, if you think of yourselves, think about how you consume digital and how you consume anything that you're using online, especially these days when everybody's stuck at home. So usually when I kind of talk about these things, I'll have an audience in front of me, I'll kind of ask the question, but I'm assuming I'm probably going to get a lot of head nods from everybody here, even if I can't necessarily see all of you. How many of you might have spent yesterday evening on the couch, possibly on your phone, maybe with a tablet open nearby, the TV was probably going, if there was a child in the room, it was probably screaming, wanting some food, and there's probably a pet running around somewhere as well. There's a lot of noise around, not just on the digital side of things, but also around the user as well. And this is what I'm going to attempt to be able to tell you how you can kind of cut through this noise and make sure that what you're doing within your digital marketing right now, when everybody's kind of super focused on everything digital, is actually working for you. And this is going to be three major things. I'll go into it in a bit more detail and I'll analyze each one as we go along. Now, you might be wondering, who am I? I'm Memo. I work for a digital marketing agency here in the UK, and I'm one of the account directors. I tend to sit with the teams and come up with strategies on essentially how we can make most of our clients more money. But the company that I work for, the mission that we have is to take the risk out of marketing and deliver kind of exponential ROI to our clients. And we do this slightly differently from a lot of other agencies, because what we do is we forecast everything, and we also only make changes to their campaigns based on data-driven decisions. So if it's working, if it's bringing in sales, that are profitable, those are the ones that we're going to ramp up. If there's sales that are coming in but they're too expensive, what can we do to make that different? And also when it comes to the forecasting side of things, we know as well as everybody else does that different industries, different sectors have different seasons. We need to be able to forecast for each one of those different seasons. Different tactics will be needed for each one of those fluctuations throughout the year. What we do is kind of unique, and it's kind of a major thing that people are kind of paying attention from. At the moment, I work in a small part of the UK that not a lot of people know. I always joke with some of our American clients, because when I say that we're based in Norwich, they're just like, how close, where is that in London? I'm just like, no, we're near London. But a few years back, we kind of applied and went up for a Google Award, and shockingly, more so to us than anybody else actually, we won the International Award for Best Search Performance, and that was from Google themselves, and that was against a whole bunch of agencies based in EMEA. Now, the following year, we thought there was no chance we could make it a hat trick, but shockingly we did. We actually went for another Google Award. We won the award for growing businesses online, and not only did we win the EMEA one, we also got flown out to New York and we won the Global Award, which, just to give you in terms of some scale, that was over 1,000 agencies, over 58 countries, and we were the winner on that one. So we tend to know what we're talking about. We kind of, the stuff that we're doing and some of the stuff that you're going to be finding out about in this presentation is stuff that we are now pushing back into Google, and they're implementing it across the board for all of their paid media. We've had some of the top people within Google come over to our offices to see how we do things, how we forecast, and we're already starting to see some of our principles being implemented within the Google platform at the moment. So these three big things that I mentioned earlier on. So these are the things that in 2020 will give you that edge over your competitors. I mean, one of the things is the fact that you're here, you're listening, you're wanting to find out what it is that you can do in 2020 to get that edge. So one of the first things is looking at full attribution, doing your 80-20 analysis, making sure that you're getting more profit in. Then arguably the second point is the most important bit. If you only take one thing away from my talk today, is focus on your conversion rate optimization, which essentially will mean that you'll get more leads or more sales for less. And then this is an interesting one. Advanced remarketing is something that you always want to be doing, staying front of mind and being a thought leader. Never has this been more important than right now. With everything going on with COVID, some people in some industries might not be ready to buy right now. They might not be physically able to purchase your product because they might be under lockdown. They need to be out of their homes to be able to consume your product. You need to have captured that information so you can remarket them further down the line when people are then out and able to then purchase your product. So if we look at full attribution and that 80-20 analysis in a bit more detail, one of the things that you need to make sure digitally that you have got full tracking. You need to be able to see every single stage of that digital funnel, from the moment that somebody clicks into your website, what route they're taking on your website, what other pages, what other products are they seeing before eventually they become a lead or a sale. That is key, because without that, you can't get attribution. And by attribution, essentially what it means is, you know, within your business that not all of your customers are created equal. So I'll give you an example of this. You could have one customer that comes and buys one thing from you once, and you get, say, £100 or $100 or €100 from it. But then you also get another customer who comes in every month for years on end and buys £1,000 worth of products. Those two customers are obviously not the same thing. They're not created equal. And you need to be able to tell what campaigns are bringing in those different types of users. And this is the point where a lot of businesses, a lot of marketing teams, they don't always look beyond that lead volume, that sale volume, or even that cost per lead or that cost per sale. And this is where it gets a bit tricky, basically, because Let me give you an example. So a company comes today and they say, okay, we've got £100,000 for marketing spend. We want to get 1,000 leads, the cost per lead of £100. There's a 10% conversion rate to sale. Sales volume would be about 100. Customer lifetime profit is about 5,000. So profit, excluding the spend, would be just shy of £500,000. Now, go to an agency, and that agency takes that money and they actually get them 2,000 leads for a cost per sale of 50. So that's actually twice as many leads for half the cost. And let me tell you something. I've worked in a lot of different agencies within marketing. That team within this happy marketing agency are literally going around the office and high-fiving everybody because they've done such a great job at getting those sales, those leads in, basically. But that's not the entire story. The entire story is that the conversion to sale is halved. There's still the same sales volume. The customer lifetime profit is less because these people are probably less engaged with your brand, which ultimately means that there's less profit to be made. Now, if you were looking at a happy business, and what you would ideally want from this is actually focusing a bit more on some of those key metrics and making sure that if you're spending 100,000, you might get less leads. You might get less than 1,000 leads. They might cost you more. They might cost you more than the £100 that you wanted to spend. But if your conversion to sale is 15%, you've made 125 sales, more than you were hoping for before. Customer lifetime profit is higher, which means that the profit is more than double what you were expecting it to be. So you know as well as I do, profit is king, especially when we're going to be looking at things like how things are being affected right now with the COVID situation. So profit might be slightly delayed in this situation because people might, again, as I mentioned before, they might not be able to consume your product, but it still needs to be front of mind. And then you need to be focusing on optimization, but optimization is all about prioritizations, making sure that you're prioritizing the things that are working properly. And again, this is where the 80-20 comes into play. What we've seen from a lot of the digital campaigns is that about 80% of the output, so essentially 80% of all transactions, profits, revenues, everything comes from about 20% of all the campaigns. So you need to know what that 20% is, so then you can start maximizing it. And this is the point that we were mentioning earlier on. So conversion rate optimization is key. This is when you can start really leveraging your marketing and making a difference, essentially. And essentially all it is, conversion rate optimization, just to think about it in kind of more simple terms, is if you've got, say, 100 people that visit your website, and of those 100 people, 10 people then convert into a sale, you've got a 10% conversion rate, which, by the way, with most websites is the dream of all dreams to get to that point. And let me just kind of paint you a picture with this one a bit more. So a few years back, we had a customer that came to us with a very specific request. He said, okay, I want to start some paid advertising, and I want you to get me 23,400 unique visitors a month. And we said, that's a really specific number. Why? He just very simply explained that's roughly what he was getting from his organic. So if he was to get the same thing from paid campaign, essentially he would then double the revenue that he's got coming into the business. Now, the interesting thing with this is we kind of sat with the client and explained that, look, instead of spending X amount of money for the media spend when the website might not be converting, because the website was converting at a 0.3% conversion rate. So at that 0.3% conversion rate, he'd be getting about 78 sales and about £78,000 in revenue. Now, spend that money that you might have spent on media and just getting in front of those people. And actually, if you take that 0.3% and work with it, it takes some time. I'm not going to lie, this will take a while to get to the stage of it being up to 4.3%. You will get 14 times more sales for no extra traffic. This is still the traffic that's coming in from just the organic side of things. You've not had to pay for any extra traffic. You've paid to kind of improve your conversion on your website, but it's a once-off capital investment at that point. And essentially, your sales have gone through the roof, and so has the revenue. And that's just by changing that metric ever so slightly. And as I said, it takes a while. It takes some finessing to get it to this level. But it's all about continuous improvements. This is a case study from one of our clients. You can see between November and February, the volume of clicks has increased. The volumes of leads have gone up exponentially, but also if you look at that conversion rate, it went from 3.16% conversion rate up to 8.94. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the last time I checked in on this client, they're up to 12% at the moment. This was a client that came in, and originally their cost per lead was over £250 for each one of their leads. They're now down to even lower than £8 cost per lead. And these are quality leads that they've got coming in, not just leads that they can't do anything with. And when you're looking at how you're going to do conversion rate optimization, you're going to look at reviewing that performance, what your Google Analytics are telling you. Look at session recording software. Identify what your quick wins are going to be. If we test this on the website, what will then happen? So that's when you create your hypothesis. What would happen if you were to test this? And then you split test it. So you'd have variant A and variant B of the website, and then you see which one performs best. If variant B performs best, great. You move on to the next test. If variant A does, then you might want to retest that test, but tweak it slightly. And this is continuous. Conversion rate optimization should never end. It could always keep getting better. And the thing that most people don't realize, that if you have got the highest converting website in your industry, you can simply buy all the traffic. Because essentially at that point, it doesn't matter what it costs for you to be in that top position. Ultimately, that cost per sale is going to be lower than all of your competitors. So by default, you will dominate that industry. So moving on to the last section that I want to talk about a bit more is this key point, especially now when we're in lockdown and people are kind of, some products are harder to kind of get to the customers. Don't get me wrong, we've got clients at the moment who are working in e-commerce. That's doing really well because people are stuck at home, they're buying everything and getting it delivered. Same with a lot of our pharmaceutical clients, but I'll give you an example. We've got some estate agency clients. Nobody's moving homes at the moment, so they need to make sure that what they're doing is resonating with the users at the moment, and making sure that those users are going into their remarketing list, so then that they can actually utilize that user kind of interacting with their website and their content further down the line when they can actually start consuming the product. So with remarketing, most people have probably experienced remarketing. You might have not been aware of it, but I'll give you an example. You visit the Levi's website, you see a pair of jeans, you put it in your basket, but at the end of the day, you just realize, you know what, it's too expensive. I'm going to let it be. I'll come back to it at a different stage. Funny how that exact same pair of jeans will follow you around the internet. But the thing with this is it works. Like, people, if you get in front of them, the reason why people are still using remarketing is because it works. It reminds people, maybe that barrier to purchase that it was too expensive is then solved a couple of days later when that same user has just got paid from work. So it's really important to kind of stay that front of mind with the customer. Now, this is a very, very messy, very atrocious chart, but this is something that a lot of decent sales teams will use, and actually remarketing can be used at every single one of these different drop-off points. So they've clicked through, they've filled the form, but actually, you know what, they don't want to move on to a quote. That could be its own remarketing list. But then if you look at the people that did fill in the quote but didn't go on to the sale, that's another database, that's another remarketing list of people that you can get your message across to them. Essentially, with marketing, all you need to be doing is selling in the next step. That's ultimately what you need to be doing. And slowly, slowly, you will get that person all the way to the end. And also generally, if you do a lot of that hand holding along the way, we've seen that some of the most loyal customers and some of the highest spending customers usually are the ones that come out at the end of that funnel, because essentially you've held their hand. They feel like they know more about you, they trust the brand, so they're ultimately going to come back to you for more. If they're happy with the product as well, you'll probably get repeat clients, and then you start looking at the lifetime value as well of the client. And the thing is with this, with remarketing, I think most people are aware that you can do it on Google, but I don't think most people are aware that there are other channels that you could use. You could use Twitter, you could use RLSA, you can use Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. But when we're talking about Google, and this is the point that I would ask a question, but we're not in a room at the moment, we're all socially distancing, but I don't think most people realize quite how long you can be remarketed to as a user within Google. It's kind of spooky and kind of slightly stalkerish, but 540 days. Do not get me wrong, I am not saying that you should be serving ads to people for 540 days. They will get sick and tired of your ads. However, you have got that database for 540 days. So you could refresh that content. If something worked, people will come out of that remarketing list because eventually they will purchase. But the ones that are staying on there, you've still not addressed one of their concerns. So a new bit of copy, a new advert, a new landing page that they could go onto, that could address that concern, and they could ultimately then buy. And again, really important when we're looking at the lockdown situation, especially when we don't know how long this might last, you need these lists to be kind of keeping that pool of users in as much as possible, so then you can utilize it further down the line. But the interesting thing about remarketing that most people, again, don't necessarily realize is remarketing is charged on a cost per click, not on a cost per impression. So the interesting thing with remarketing is, with a lot of businesses that are strapped for cash as well at this point in time, you can get millions of impressions because you're not paying for the impressions, you're paying for the click a month for less than £1,000, or even less than that, depending on the kind of industry and depending on your user list as well. But it's great brand awareness, especially where at this point in time, you want to make sure that you're maintaining that share of voice. We've seen with the recession previously that the people that dropped out of all marketing activity lost out more eventually. The people that stayed in and made sure that they still maintained a share of voice, and this is a great way of doing this, are the ones that ultimately came out winning in the end, because people were there, they saw them throughout all of this, which meant that by the time that things had kind of settled, they were brand loyal, they'd already kind of bought into this when everybody else was then only just coming back into their marketing campaigns. So as I said, the three big things that you need to be looking at severely if you want to be getting that edge in 2020 is the notion of full attribution, being aware of that 80-20 analysis, making sure that you know what things are working and what isn't working, and optimizing for the things in your campaigns that are, which ultimately would mean more profit. Making sure, arguably, as I said before, one of the most important things, that your conversion rate optimization is on point as much as you can possibly do this. So making sure that the leads that you're getting it in, or the sales, that you're paying as little as possible as you can, because you're converting more people on the site. And making sure with advanced remarketing that you're staying front of mind, being that thought leader, maintaining that share of voice within that market. And when you have all of these three things together, that's when you will not only have a successful marketing campaign within 2020, but you will start seeing the profits coming. Thanks for your time. I've been Memo. If you guys have got any questions, I think we've got a couple minutes now at the end. I'll be more than happy to take any questions.